My name is Dexter, and this is the Red Tails Ocean Grill. So the origin of Red Tails was as a culmination of ideas that the previous restaurant was successful as a seafood place. And we like Red Tails because some of the features that we have actually had lobster mac and cheese. We serve shrimp in a variety of ways, in a variety of dishes. So we thought Red Tails was a good name for the restaurant. The restaurant had been in the business for 3 consecutive years. It was in its prime. The sales were going up, record numbers in the restaurant itself. The name was getting out. The different dishes that they had was getting very, very popular. And then COVID.
Announced all bars, movie theaters, and gyms across Maryland will close at 5 p.m. today.
California shutting down bars and wineries.
So the COVID shutdowns are probably the biggest existential crisis that this industry has ever faced.
The momentum, the spirit was broken. I really hated to see the restaurant close down. I offered many, many solutions to that in order to keep the previous owner here, in order to keep Little Fish open. When the opportunity started to present itself, that there was a potential that we could open the place, everybody just fell in place and we came back. We were able to invite everyone into the restaurant. The opening day, it was like bringing family back together again. We were able to cut that ribbon, give thanks to the community that was all around us, thanks to the people that provided the money that helped us to open up. And ever since then, there's another person that's walking through that door that says, we're glad that you're back. One of the signature dishes from Little Fish was the crab dip. In the middle of it is a crab ball along with the chips and bread that goes along with it. Everything here, especially the entrees, are cooked to order. So everything is fresh. When the chef is making that dish, he's putting in the peppers, he's putting in pasta, he's putting in everything fresh. All the marinara sauce is made fresh in the kitchen. We added tailless shrimp and grits. Tailless shrimp and grits are just fantastic. Once again, made from scratch, all fresh ingredients. But then I'll tell you about my favorite. My favorite is the catfish fingers, okay? My seafood. I grew up on catfish. I'm from the Midwest, I'm from Tennessee. The fact that the Democratic Committee is here today is a testament that of people that felt good enough about us, even in the short time that we were here, to come and have the convention here. They came, they saw the place, they liked the place, they said we want to be a part of this, and we just want to keep that momentum going. Thank you for visiting us at Red Tails Ocean Grill. Remember, we are family. We'd love to have you. Come visit us anytime. Our website is redtailsoceangrill.com. You can find information as to how you can order and take a look at our menu. We thank you. My name is Dexter, and this is the Red Tails Ocean Grill.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. I'd like to thank Ms. Lewis and thank the Maryland Democratic Party for choosing Charles County to kick off this series of forums as we move towards electing the next governor of the state of Maryland. And I think everyone in this room agrees that the next governor of the state of Maryland should be a Democrat. Is that right? Are we all on the same page with that? Because we believe that the next governor should recognize that as a state. You know, we always hear that old adage about, you know, we all are in the same boat. You know how we always hear that? But the reality is we're not all in the same boat. We're dealing with the same storm, but it just so happens that we're being transported in different vessels. And so as a state, we need to recognize the uniqueness of this opportunity as we embark on the election of the next governor for the state of Maryland. That governor needs to understand how important equity is as we move forward in the future. He or she needs to understand that Maryland needs to create a more robust MBE program that recognizes opportunities should abound for every single citizen here in the state of Maryland. That individual needs to also understand the importance and significance of climate change and how it's impacting the overall environment. That needs to be at the top of the list of responsible programs moving into the future. This is a unique opportunity, again, for the future of our state. And I believe these type of forums provide us with the opportunity to hear directly from those candidates that are seeking this very important position. And again, I'd like to, on behalf of Charles County, welcome everyone, and I'd like to thank all of the candidates for being participants today, and we look forward to a great forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner President. I appreciate it. And now it is my privilege to introduce our moderator, Tracy Wilkins. Tracy is NBC News 4 Prince George's County Bureau Chief and an Emmy Award-winning reporter. She was raised in Beltsville and graduated from High Point High School. As Bureau Chief, she has moderated gubernatorial debates, covered U.S. state, Senate, local elections, and politics. Her investigations have exposed discriminatory behavior in police agencies, igniting policy and leadership changes. She also covers land use, education, and crimes impacting county residents. So please join me in welcoming Tracy Wilkins. Tracy, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you, Yvette. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Everyone on Facebook, thank you for joining us, and for all of our folks who are here live, thank you very much for being here. And we do not want to hear from you for the rest of the evening. It is very important that everyone stay as quiet as possible so that the live stream is as quiet as possible. So please, no applauding or any remarks. And we also want to make sure that all of the candidates have an opportunity to answer all of our questions. And they're only going to have a minute per question, 45 seconds for the questions that are coming from the audience. So you have had some index cards that have been handed out to you. You can take a look at those and go ahead and fill them out with a question if you have one, and someone will collect those and bring them back. So again, a minute for our folks here to answer questions, and we're going to keep up with that with these cards that we have here. Our card holders and our timekeepers are taking care of that. When you see that 15-second sign, that means that you have 15 seconds, right? Not 20. Not another minute, but 15 seconds. And then at the end of that, that red card is going to go up. That means stop. Okay. All right. Good. So it's very important that, again, everyone who is here with us, please be as quiet as possible so that we can make sure that we get as much time as possible to answer some of these questions that we have here today. In this forum, we're dealing with economics. So that's going to be the topic that we hang with for the rest of the evening, just economics. And in each of these forums that the Democratic Party is doing in these rural areas, they will find another topic to address, okay? So first we're going to begin with a brief introduction of everyone who is here today with us, starting with Rashawn Baker, former Prince George's County Executive; John Barron, former nonprofit executive and Clinton administration official; Doug Gansler, former Maryland Attorney General; Ashwani Jain, former Obama administration official; John King, former U.S. Education Secretary; Wes Moore, former nonprofit CEO and author; and Tom Perez, former U.S. Labor Secretary and DNC Chair. Now, we're going to go through these questions, and then, again, we will have an opportunity for some audience questions. And we're going to do this in a we're going to start with our first candidate and then go on down to our next candidates based on alphabetical order. And we're going to begin with Mr. Baker for our first question. Again, we are dealing with topics surrounding economics in the state of Maryland. So we recently found out that Maryland has a budget surplus of $2.5 billion. If elected governor, would you opt to spend that surplus of funds, and if so, on what?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Charles County for hosting us and for making my drive a little closer this time. Yeah, with the surplus, there are a couple of things. Since I would treat it as one-time money, as capital money, because it's not a revenue stream, and those who've worked in Annapolis or actually have dealt with budgets will know this. So I would use it to augment for economic development, something that we did in the county, which was our Office of Economic Development. We actually put $50 million incentive fund in there. So what I would do at the state level is increase the amount of incentive fund that we have, which is now about $100 million, increase it to $200 million, and that way you can actually augment that with what you're doing in Charles County or St. Mary's County or Calvert County to increase the opportunities to create jobs. Because I think that's the other thing that folks are afraid of after this pandemic is the ability to actually create long-term jobs. And those things will be sustainable throughout.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Same question.
Thank you. So, I would focus part of the money on emergency relief related to the pandemic, including for renters and landlords and others. Second, I would use some of the money for a rainy day fund, but the main thing and most of the money would be used to address the biggest economic problem in Maryland, which is stagnant wages for low and moderate income Marylanders. For the bottom 40% of Marylanders, they've not seen a meaningful pay raise since 1980 after adjusting for inflation. This is by far the biggest economic problem in our state. I would bring ideas and programs that don't just sound like good ideas to address this problem, but ones that have been tested in the real world and shown effective. As one example, I would launch with this money a partnership with businesses across the state to provide effective job training to every young adult in Maryland who wants to advance. There's evidence it can increase earnings as much as 40% if it's done right. The key is to focus on fast-growing industries, number one.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Mr. Gansler.
Thank you. I think the reason why it's important to have experience is because you've done it before. So I in my 16 years of running government agencies, I dealt with multi-million dollar budgets, and we were always effective in spending that money. When there's a crisis right now, as we rebuild after COVID, the kind of crisis that I led through when I was president of all the attorneys general in the United States, the national mortgage foreclosure crisis. We got almost $2 billion here into Maryland to help keep people in their homes and fight the big banks and prevent them from being evicted and foreclosed upon. We need to do the same thing here. We need to have a governor who understands that Waldorf is not a hotel in New York, but a city that's growing, that we need a light rail. We need to pay and invest in our infrastructure. We need light rail going from Branch Avenue to Waldorf. And we need to have spend that money on infrastructure, building our economy back, making sure we have universal pre-K, making sure we have universal child care, and making sure we have somebody that's actually had the experience in running government, state government, to rebuild and spend that money.
Thank you, Mr. Jane.
So I would use that surplus for sustainable recovery. And part of that is my Maryland Now plan, which is on my website, janeforgovernor.com, but it has 5 different parts. Eliminating the state income tax for 95% of Marylanders, making sure that Maryland is the very first state to make public transit free, creating the nation's very first guaranteed jobs program, legalizing marijuana and expunging records, and then also imposing specific anti-corruption measures. A budget is really a document of principles and priorities, and I think we have to prioritize people who typically feel marginalized and left out of the conversation so many times.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here in Charles County. I'd say the way we should approach the surplus is really 2 things. One, we have to focus on emergency needs. We have to protect folks from eviction. We have to help folks who are struggling right now. And there are those who say we should put in a rainy day. Well, I'd say this is what rainy looks like. This is the moment to address those immediate needs. But then we need to invest in long-term infrastructure for a strong economic recovery. That means building the Southern Maryland Light Rail project. That means investing in the climate action we need, starting to build the infrastructure for green jobs in solar, in wind. It also means investing in broadband and coupling those state dollars with federal dollars to move quickly to ensure reliable broadband throughout the state. And we also need to create funds to help small business owners start and grow their businesses here in Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
In addition to the $2.5 billion surplus that we have and projections to get up even up to $4 billion. We also have this additional one-time funding that's going to come in from the American Rescue Plan Act. That's billions of additional dollars that's going to come to the state of Maryland. And what we have to focus on is making sure that we're actually investing that capital properly in things that have been long-time generational challenges and create generational change to those issues. You know, I ran one of the largest nonprofit organizations in America, where we were able to use quantifiable evidence on the things that actually worked and invest in them in the way that we knew they had long-term solutions for our families and for our communities. And so we need to invest in mass transit options that are taking place even right down here, in including things like high-speed bus rail and also light rail. But in addition to that, focusing on fixing things like the Purple Line and the empty tunnels that are sitting down in the Washington suburbs right now, focusing on the immediate needs of our families that include things like rental assistance, evictions, moratoriums, but making sure that all of our families in this moment see a need and a recovery that we can build.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
As someone who served in local government, one of the first things I do is listen to local government, listen to people like Commissioner President Collins and others to see what are the unique needs of each particular jurisdiction, because the needs aren't exactly the same everywhere. And so that's the first thing I would do, is listen. Second thing I would do is make sure that people like the school bus drivers who went on strike here, others who are really struggling, that we have one-time opportunities to help them out, because they are absolutely in crisis. Then we move to job creation. I'd be giving a part of this money to places like the Community Bank of the Chesapeake, which is one of the best small business lenders in the state, because they can help us grow small business here in Charles County and elsewhere. Then I would make sure that we are doing the investments in job training. We can accelerate these investments in programs like the EARN program, which trains workers on the jobs that are in demand right now. That's how we can get this state back going.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Mr. Barron, the first question, or the next question, is for you. Many families are experiencing high prices for everything from gas to food right now. What is your plan to deliver economic opportunity to all and not just the privileged?
Well, throughout my career, I have focused on programs, worked with government and through philanthropy, my philanthropic team, to expand programs and policies that have been tested in the real world and shown to improve economic outcomes for low and moderate income people, including especially communities of color. I talked about the job training focused on fast-growing industries in partnership with local employers. We would do that across the entire state with businesses to provide that kind of effective training to every young adult in Maryland who wants to advance. There are other programs that have been shown, like career academies and high-poverty high schools have been shown to increase long-term earnings by about $2,500 per student. In terms of prices, so these are programs that allow wages to rise well above and beyond inflation. The last piece, I'm going to be announcing a prescription drug policy.
Thank you, Mr. Barron.
To address the problem.
Mr. Gansler.
Yeah, again, I think we need to have somebody that's actually done this before, and we need to have somebody who understands minority business enterprises, and that actually the fake ones that we have now that are unenforced. We need to have somebody really support our minority businesses are run by women, and that's what, as Attorney General, we took on those cases. I started the first civil rights department in Maryland's history to make sure that we actually protected those who are being left behind. If you're talking about economic prosperity, that's exactly who needs government. We need to make sure that we're supporting our small businesses, that we have education, we adopt the blueprint plan, the Kerwin Commission. We need to have pre-K. We need to have vocational opportunities in our high schools. We need to make sure we have literacy training in our high schools. We need to have build up our economy through the Green Maryland that we have on our website, douggansler.com, 32 planks, to make sure that we start to put money back into the pockets of working families.
Thank you, Mr. Jane.
At the end of the day, we need to increase access to capital for women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, LGBTQ-owned businesses, disabled businesses, and minority-owned businesses, because they often have difficulty getting that access to the capital. And again, it goes back to my Maryland Now plan, which is going to reduce the cost of living for every Marylander, regardless of where you're living, reduce some of the extra costs that you might be incurring during this crisis we have, and making sure you have more disposable income so you can pocket your hard-earned money to pay for bills and to pay for other expenses, and also just to save and retire in a really efficient and safe manner.
Mr. King.
You know, when I was a kid, public schools saved my life, and that's why I decided to become a teacher and pursue a career as an educator. I think about the role of government as trying to make a difference in people's day-to-day lives. So what are the costs that folks are struggling with? Affordable child care. We ought to have universal access to quality, affordable child care in Maryland that is achievable. Folks are struggling when they can't get access to reliable transportation. We ought to invest in public transit. That will lower folks' costs. Folks are struggling with housing. We need to be doing much more with our housing trust fund as a state to increase the supply of housing that folks can afford. We have to take an approach that focuses on the day-to-day struggles that people have in their lives. We ought to have paid family leave in this state. It's immoral that there are folks who have to go back to work 2 weeks after delivering a baby. We can do a much better job making people's lives better. That's our job in government.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
When my father died in front of me when I was 4 years old, it wasn't until I was 14 years old when my mother got her first job that gave her benefits. This was a woman with a master's degree. And I think about her because she's really the reason why I decided to devote my entire life to public service. And when we think about what we need for a state right now in this moment where we have so many individual shocks that our families are facing, we focus on three things. It's work, wages, and wealth. Making sure that we're actually working with our community colleges, our four-year schools, our trade schools, and our apprentice programs, like here in the College of Southern Maryland, to make sure they get what they need in order to provide proper work pathways. Making sure that we're accelerating the $15 minimum wage and making sure that people are getting fair wages for the work that they are doing every single day. There's no reason for you to work a full job and still live in poverty. And also, we need to fix procurement laws to make sure that our small businesses, particularly our minority-owned businesses and female-owned businesses, are getting the capital that their business models and their ideas deserve.
Mr. Perez.
So many people in this state don't have health care, don't have health insurance. One of the first things I do is make sure everybody in this state has access to quality, affordable health care. I already have a plan for that. So many people in this state have the tools and talents, but they need the opportunity. When I was your labor secretary, I referred to us as Match.com. We match job seekers trying to punch their ticket to the middle class with employers trying to grow their business. The healthcare sector here in Southern Maryland is a huge growth sector. We need more nurses. We need more allied health professionals. And the College of Southern Maryland, other community colleges, other four-year colleges can provide that pathway for so many people to punch their ticket to the middle class. Implementing the Build Back Better plan that is going to be passed in the next few weeks is going to transform America. And the next governor has to be front and center in making sure that early childhood education, child care, all of these critical additions to our social compact are
Thank you. The next
implemented.
question will be for Mr. Gansler. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Baker. Of course I do. Mr. Baker.
Well, let me just say this. I do agree with something that Doug Gansler said, and that is you have to have the experience to do this. And that is we've got to raise our wages. And if you look at what we did in Prince George's County and working with my lieutenant governor candidate, Nancy Navarro, we actually raised the wages in Prince George's County and Montgomery County. That is a model for the rest of the state to go by. We were the first to do it. The other is job creation. When I came in as county executive, and we know this if you're in Prince George's County or the southern part of our state, it is where we were lacking in jobs. We went from being last in jobs in the state to by the time I left, we had actually led the state 5 years in a row creating jobs. That's opportunities for people to actually earn a living wage, which is where we should work toward, but also investing in the areas where they live. So we want to not only invest in Charles County, St. Mary's County, but these areas around the state, this southern part of the state is actually where the economic opportunities are.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Now the next question will be for Mr. Gansler. 67% of Marylanders are fully vaccinated. 74% have had at least one shot. If these are the numbers that we're looking at in another year, what is your position on mandates, from masks to vaccines and their effect on the economy?
I think at the top of the show, Yvette Lewis and Reuben Collins talked about the need for having a Democrat in the governor's chair, and I think that this question goes right to that, which is we have democratic values. It's hard to understand how a vaccination or a mask became a political issue in the first place. This is all about public safety. We follow the science. We want to keep people healthy. We had a horrible president for so long that is responsible for killing a lot of people. Let's hope that a year from January that this will be in the rearview mirror, but we do need to prepare going forward for food security for folks and to make sure that people have access to the opportunity of housing, public safety, education, jobs, so that if something like this happens again, we don't fall through the safety net. So I'm all for mandatory vaccinations. I think if you want to die because you don't want to get a vaccination, that's on you. But it's very selfish, and it's not the right thing to do. And we need to make sure that everybody has mandatory.
Thank you, Mr. Jane.
Well, I think it's all about following what the CDC and the science tells us. And when they tell us that we need masks, we need vaccinations, that's what we would do. And using the power of the governor's office, yes, we would mandate that if a majority of our residents are not getting either the vaccine access that they need or not enough people are getting vaccinated as quick as they need. And that goes back to a real equity issue. When at the start of this pandemic, I think we were too quick to open up schools and businesses, which actually delayed our economic recovery because it is an economic issue as well. And it puts the public in greater danger when you're not really protecting everyone who really is not able to get those resources at the exact same time. And so that's what I would do as governor, really making sure we're doing an audit of what went right, what went wrong this time, putting in those protective equipments in place for the future and making sure we have a playbook to use in the event that something else goes wrong in the future that we cannot predict.
Mr. King.
You know, I think about doing pop-up vaccine clinics, volunteering at pop-up vaccine clinics early in when the vaccine first became available. And one of the things I was struck by was how much more effective local community-based organizations and nonprofits were in overcoming people's vaccine hesitancy. So I hope one of the things we'll do as a state is invest more in those community-based organizations, churches, to help in getting the vaccine to folks. We also need vaccine mandates for public employees, and we need mask mandates for public spaces, including public schools. Ultimately, though, we need the governor to lead on this. You know, if you look at Arkansas's Governor Hutchinson, very conservative Republican governor, but he spent the summer going to communities where people were listening to falsehoods on Facebook and trying to explain to them why that information was false. That was hard to do. We need a governor who's willing to go to every part of the state and help folks see why we need to make sure that everyone is vaccinated.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
We have to understand that the faster that we can get our state fully vaccinated, the faster we can move past this, the faster we can get our economy back on track, the faster we can get our kids back in school, the faster we can return to a measure of economic mobility and economic stability that so many people are craving right now. And it's right. The data continues to show us that things like mask mandates, that they work. And if we want to have mask mandates in public spaces, et cetera, then I think that does become incredibly important. The other thing that we saw over the process of this past year, though, was the lack of leadership that we saw from the state level on this, where we had local leaders who were going at it on their own, making decisions on their own, paying for it on their own. We need to have state leadership that's willing to actually go in and work with our community organizations, work with our homes of worship, work with our nonprofit organizations, work with those who already have a built-in measure of trust within our communities to show people that we have a vaccine that is safe, and we have an important goal as a state that we must hit if we need to return to any form of true economic stability that our state deserves.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
We have remarkable examples of local governments who have done remarkable things throughout this pandemic, notwithstanding the odds. In my neck of the woods in Montgomery County, the highest vaccination rates were of Latinos, north of 90%, because of the nonprofits, because of government actors, a culturally proficient outreach strategy. We need to continue to do that all over the states. Remarkable things that were done down here in Southern Maryland as well. Those are the really important things that we need to do. But we also need to learn the lessons of this pandemic. One lesson is that when people don't have health insurance, they die. A recent study showed that 25% of COVID deaths in this state were attributable to the fact that 350,000 people don't have health insurance. I have a plan to make sure that 100% of Marylanders have health insurance. 2,500 plus people died because they didn't have health insurance. Let's do better. We can do better.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Mr. Baker.
The one thing that I knew as county executive was that the health officer was a joint appointment between the county executive and the governor. And the point of that is the governor has the lead. It is not like we haven't known that we were going to have emergencies that come up. We also coordinate our efforts with our Homeland Security and the state Homeland Security. It is the governor that has the lead. That has been our problem. It's the governor is the only person that can actually bring all the counties and jurisdiction, work with the president and the commissioners to get this done. But if the governor is not leading, then you have 24 different avenues of how they're going to do it. That has been our problem. It's not that we haven't thought about how to do this. It's not that we haven't prepared. We do it every year. Every year we meet. Our health officers meet and coordinate with the state. Our emergency preparedness coordinate. So if there is a snowstorm or there is a scare in D.C., we all coordinate it. This time the governor did.
Thank you. Mr. Barron.
Let me be specific. Vaccines are our one-way ticket out of this pandemic. They are extremely effective at preventing serious COVID illness. As one example, the hospitalization and death rate of vaccinated people is less than 1/10 that of unvaccinated. We should be pulling out every stop to get every policy lever we have to get people vaccinated. So because while 32% of our population is not vaccinated, as was currently the case, we're vulnerable to new waves of COVID. So I was the first candidate back in August to call for required vaccines for all healthcare workers because they're around immunocompromised people. Are you kidding me? Of course they should be vaccinated. For all school staff across the state, for kids 16 and over, for all state employees and contractors, and I also called for pop-up vaccine clinics at all public schools and private schools in the state. This is a no-brainer. Let's do what works.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jane, the next question is for you. Maryland workers and workers around the country have been very clear. They want better working conditions and wages at every job level. Can a governor be pro-economic development and pro-labor? Give examples of how the two can exist.
Short answer is yes. I come from a minority-owned small business family, very proud Democrats, and I think there's often a false notion that what's good for employers must be bad for employees and vice versa. The reality is both can benefit. Corporate social responsibility is not a luxury, but it can be a necessity and can work for both. So when it comes to investing in employers, I talk about making sure we have more branch banking. We have increased access to capital for minority-owned, women-owned businesses. When it comes to protecting employees, that's why I helped fight and advocate for a $15 minimum wage in Montgomery County, where I'm from. Making sure that we prohibit at-will contracts that don't make any sense and are not fair to both parties. And what we have found is when employees are taken care of, they become more productive and more loyal, and it does help the economics of the business itself. And we've seen that in my family business. We've seen that in businesses all across the state. And as governor, that's the kind of leadership and approach I would take.
Mr. King.
I would say economic development and economic dignity go together, and we need to invest in both. When we're investing in economic development, that means things like creating a state bank so we ease access to capital for small business owners. It means investing in infrastructure, public transit, investing in job training like our community colleges and apprenticeship programs. But we also have to invest in economic dignity. That means accelerating, raising the minimum wage. It means indexing the minimum wage to inflation. It means ensuring access to health care for all Marylanders. It means ensuring that folks can take paid family leave when someone in their family is sick or when they have a new child. It means investing in affordable housing so that folks can afford where they live. We can do both things. We have the resources to do that, both with the $2.5 billion surplus and the new funds that hopefully will be coming with the Build Back Better Act, as well as the infrastructure bill that just passed.
Mr. Moore.
I know we can build successful businesses and also support workers because I've done it. I'm proud of the fact that I believe the only person up here that has built a successful business, a business that focused on helping first generation, first and family students make it to and through college, understanding that the challenge for those students was not simply going to be about tuition, but it was also about housing and transportation and food and childcare. But by being able to build a business model that actually wraps around the support of not just the individual students we're supporting, but also around our employees and our workers, we built something that was accretive to our larger society. We as a government have to focus on these issues of work and wages and wealth, and being able to leverage our apprenticeship programs and community college programs that can get people to work, have transportation assets that can actually physically get people from where they live to where they work, making sure we're providing fair wages, but then also the wealth component is important. We have to create a mechanism to give something to pass on to their children other than debt.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Perez.
Income inequality in the 20th century was at its lowest when labor union density was at its highest. That is not correlation, that is causation. I had the privilege of serving as your labor secretary under Barack Obama and part of his economic team. We had the longest uninterrupted streak of private sector job growth in our nation's history under President Obama. And we did it at the same time we were working together with workers. I remember when we did a rule to make sure that we extended overtime pay for people. When we announced that rule, I had large businesses there. And those businesses were next to me with this rule because they understood that one of the biggest costs for a business is attrition. When you treat your workers fairly, they stick around. I'm proud of the fact that we have so much support among organized labor, and I'm proud of the fact that we have so many supporters among business leaders in Maryland because they know that when we work together, That's how we build shared prosperity.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Mr. Baker.
Yes, I'm proud of the fact that we actually did it here in Maryland. When we came in, we wanted to raise our wages up to $15 an hour. People said, you're crazy. Prince George's County right now wasn't attracting businesses. If you do that, you're going to lose out. In fact, we did it anyway, and we saw our increase in the number of businesses. But it's not just having the right ideas or saying the right things. You also have to convince the legislature to go with you. So one of the things I'm proud about is getting the legislature, both at the local level on the council and the state, to go along with the things that we want to do. We also increased the number of PLAs in the county from when I took over. If you look at the large developments we did, both state and local project, whether that's MGM or whether that's Gaylord, we did the same things where we increased the number of labor working there, but we also increased the wages and created jobs. So it can be done if you're willing to lead it and know how. And it's very different doing it at the government level.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Barron.
Yes, I want to go back to the big picture here, which is the poverty rate today in Maryland is 9%. You know what it was in 1995? It was 9%. Because for low and moderate income Marylanders, they've seen flat wages for decades now, while income inequality has been growing. Now, the system is just not working for an astonishingly large share of Marylanders. We need to do something very different. Everybody's had a new plan. It seems like everybody's had a new plan. You can go back, roll the tape back to the gubernatorial elections of the 1990s. But here we are, it's decades later, we're still mired in the same problems. What I am offering is very different. And what we need is something very different. I am focusing on expanding programs that don't just sound like good ideas, but have been tested in the real world and shown effective. The ones that are most effective in job training and also in schools, career academies, are ones where there's a partnership with businesses. So under my plan for job training, the state pays for the training, the businesses pay for the internships.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Mr.
gets skilled
Gansler.
workers.
The problem with running for governor as a starter job in politics is that you don't have the experience. And I agree with Rashern Baker, County Executive Baker, that in order, you can have a lot of great ideas, but we actually have to have an understanding of how the levers of government work, how to get things through, how to get things passed. On this question on how to build the economy, we have to look at both from the business perspective and the workers' perspective. We spent a lot of time focused on workers, as we should. We need to make sure we have universal child care for workers as we build. We need to make sure that we have vocational training. We need to make sure we support our labor unions. We need to actually stop talking about how great we are with labor and actually do something as Democrats to support our unions, to have project labor agreements. But we need to make sure that we also support our businesses. And we need to say that as a government, we're going to support our working families, our workers, but we're also going to support the businesses that employ those workers.
Thank you. The next question is for you, Mr. King. As we build back better, what would you emphasize? Would it be tax policy, income equality, job training, education? You don't have to use any of these. What would it be?
Well, for me, and probably not surprising given that I spent my life as a teacher and principal and leading schools at the local level, state level, and then as Secretary of Education for President Obama, I think education is at the foundation of the health of our economy and our democracy. On this topic of economic development, we know education will be critical. The blueprint for Maryland's future includes an important investment in career and technical education programs that will help high school students prepare for good jobs. We need to invest much more in our community colleges and our historically black colleges and universities as a state. Those institutions can be huge drivers of access to opportunity. We need to build more apprenticeship programs in partnership with labor unions and employers so that folks can get good jobs with good wages and good benefits. And we also need to get to universal affordable child care, birth through 5, because that's good for kids' educational success and it's good for economic development. I talk to employers all the time who are losing folks from the workforce now because they can't find
Thank you,
childcare.
Mr. King. Mr. Moore.
We have to address a structural breakdown with a structural buildup. When I was running one of the largest nonprofits in the country, people asked the question and said, well, how does poverty show itself? Is it education? Is it housing? Is it transportation? Is it criminal justice? The answer is yes. It doesn't choose. It shows itself in every single way and in every single mechanism in a person's life. And so the only way we can be able to address the type of challenge that we've had, the fact that last year we watched 11 years of job growth go away in 11 weeks, is the fact that we watched how many Marylanders who lost their jobs due to COVID were living in poverty before COVID, right? The working poor. So we have to be able to address this as a structural buildup. We have to address to operationalize the blueprint for Maryland's future, which I was very proud to work on, and being able to implement a universal pre-K system, also invest in community schools. But we also have to make sure we're addressing the fact that the number one reason for bankruptcy in the state of Maryland is people getting sick. We have to invest in transportation assets that move people from where they live to where they work. All of these issues must be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Jobs and justice. That's what it's about. That's what I would be doing. Looking at this through a racial equity lens. What does that mean? That means as we are building out a clean energy economy, as we are building out offshore wind, making sure that the people who benefit from those jobs, and these are 50, 60-year jobs that are $30 to $40 an hour union jobs, making sure that communities, every community can benefit from this. Making sure that when we are investing in healthcare, as I've said repeatedly, we're investing in health insurance for everyone. When we talk about building back better, we're talking about here in Southern Maryland, understanding what the job opportunities are. There's tremendous opportunities in the healthcare sector. There's programs at CSM, the College of Southern Maryland, to help build the future workforce in HVAC. Understanding that in different parts of the state, there are different needs that we need to address, but then there are needs we have everywhere. Broadband, making sure we build a community mental health infrastructure, making sure that zip code never
Thank you,
determines
Mr.
destiny.
Perez. Mr. Baker.
Thank you. I'd like to agree with what Mr. Moore said. I think he's absolutely right. You have to do all those things at once. And here's the difference that we have to remember. On this Build Back Better program, we're going to get an infusion of dollars. But those dollars aren't going to be continuous for the next 20 years. They're going to be one-time funds. So any of the folks who in Annapolis who work on appropriation or Ways and Means understand what that means. So that means you actually have to set up a program. We have to look at healthcare because that's one of the areas that we see where we're having issues that we have to address. And in order, we also have to address education. But the main thing we have to do is take that money, put it into infrastructure, transportation, which is how you actually create jobs in the state. That's where the discretionary money is at the state level. So we have to actually create those jobs, bring in businesses here so that we can then get more tax revenues that we can invest in our education. We can invest in healthcare. We can invest in making sure the quality of life is better. But we have to use this smartly.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Barron.
Thank you. So I want to go back to the big problem in Maryland, which is we're not making progress on major long-standing problems in our state. I've talked about stagnant wages over the past 40 years. Education is another area. More than a quarter of middle school students in the state of Maryland are unable to read at a basic level. More than a third can't do basic math. Those numbers are no different than they were 20 years ago. So I've talked about, so in terms of what we would do with Build Back Better money, we would invest in people. I've talked about effective job training programs, ones that have been tested and proven. In education, I would do what is expand programs that have been tested and shown to work, like providing high quality tutoring to every struggling first and second grader in the entire state of Maryland. It's been shown to move them up toward grade level early before their problems become serious in later grades. And we'll do it by engaging the community, including retirees and recent college graduates, to become tutors for a modest stipend as a public service.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Mr. Gansler.
As we build back better in Maryland, we need to make sure that we tap into the talents of every Marylander, whether they're from Southern Maryland, the shore, Western Maryland, or the big cities. We need to make sure that whether they're black, brown, or whatever their income level is, we tap into their potential. We have so much potential here in Maryland. And that means not just giving them a fish, but teaching them how to fish. We need to make sure people have access to opportunity, whether it be in education, housing, criminal justice, public health, or jobs. And we can do that by electing somebody who has as a practical progressive, who's gotten things done, who understands here in Southern Maryland, for example, that Hollywood and California are actually cities in Maryland that have been here, that have come to years and years of Democratic dinners at the Charles County and St. Mary's County and Calvert County, and have the relationships to listen to the folks that are on the ground and hear what their issues are and how they want to spend the money. You can't come in with all the answers. You have to listen to the people who live there and are on the ground and know the answers.
Thank you, Mr. Gansler. Mr. James.
To me, Build Back Better really means looking at issues in a comprehensive way and engaging more people into the political process from day one of your operation. As someone who's been a cancer survivor, a son of immigrants and minority-owned small business owners, a proud product of Maryland public schools, someone who has worked in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, I have seen so many people like me who are being talked at instead of spoken with. They do not have a seat at the table, which is why, since I kicked off my campaign in January, I released 150 detailed policies, all of which were created by residents from every single county who will be impacted by those decisions. That's also why I'm the first candidate in the nation to be 100% volunteer run. Everything on my campaign is crowdsourced, really engaging residents from all backgrounds, all walks of life, every county into the operation when it comes to policy and strategy and really looking at issues in a comprehensive and sincere way, and not just as a talking point and not just once the election is over.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, the next question is for you, and it's a local question dealing with Charles County. How would you address the transportation needs of Charles County? Please share your thoughts on the county's highest priority transit project, the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Light Rail Project.
I think for each and every one of us, we saw the issue of traffic congestion firsthand today. Just getting here. Amen to that. But this is a real issue that we also have to understand is not a new issue. This has been a challenge, has been a generational challenge. And whether you're talking about the smart rail and the fact that we have something that we have funding now for the initial survey and the plan, but not funding for the operationalization of it, which is also a current theme for how so many transportation projects actually happen here, not just in Southern Maryland, but throughout the state of Maryland. And that it needs to be supplemented, that we have to also focus on things like rapid bus rail, that we need to have rapid bus transit that's going to supplement it, that it also has to come with ways we're going to address 210, ways we're going to address 301 and how 301 actually merges with Route 5, what's taking place down on Route 4. The problem is we have a whack-a-mole approach when it comes to mass transit and transportation as a whole, and that is what's causing not just the frustration, but the fact that we have a lot of people who continue to have this.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Perez.
Commuters here are spending roughly 400 hours a year getting to work. 400 hours a year. Bloomberg said that you have the worst commute in the country, and I saw that tonight. And we all saw that tonight, folks. And I would bring a sense of urgency that this current administration doesn't bring to transit. Look at the Nice-Middleton Bridge. This governor at the 11th hour, under cover of darkness, got rid of the hiker-biker trail. This is a 100-year project, and you will not have that. Look at this approval of the funding for NEPA. It was signed. It was enacted without his signature, because he didn't want to move forward sufficiently fast enough. If you need a sense of urgency, just take one commute here. We need to invest here. We need to make sure we're putting this in the priority that it deserves, and that is exactly what I would do. Make it a priority and fund it and use this money now.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Mr. Baker.
Thank you. I would take one disagreement with the question that it's a local question. It's not. It's a question that has affected those of us who live in Prince George's County, whether you're in Southern Maryland, whether you're Charles, whether you're St. Mary's. All of us have been dealing with this issue for years. The one thing we have to get together, and this is where the governor's office could help, is that we have to understand we're all in it. That the folks in Prince George's County who come up with their transportation plan for the state should include actually relieving traffic down here, because it will help them. When we say that we want to actually push the metro across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge before any place else, we're doing it because we understand that that's going to help us alleviate the traffic down here. The reason the state should be behind it is because this is where the job growth is going to happen. This is where we have the expanding opportunities. So if we actually create jobs and opportunities here, those are tax revenues that benefit the whole state.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Barron.
Thank you. So I'm a strong proponent of mass transit. I myself have ridden the bus to work every day for the past 25 years. We need the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project, probably as a light rail project. We'll see as the studies go forward. I strongly support that. The growth in the economy down here and the growth in the number of people. I mean, we can't just rely on what we've got now for sure. We need a We need a rapid transit solution to the problem. I'm also a supporter of other rapid transit, mass transit solutions, including the Purple Line and an east-west solution in Baltimore, maybe the Red Line, likely the Red Line. I would also change the way that we procure big infrastructure projects like these in Maryland. We don't look at past performance of the bidders as much as we should. And so in some cases, like with the Purple Line, projects have gone way over budget and over time.
Thank you, Mr. Gansler.
Democrats come to Southern Maryland during campaign time and they don't show back up. I guess 10 days ago, 11 days ago, I was here for Veterans Day. I was in Leonardtown. I was the only Democrat running for governor that was there for the Veterans Day parade. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's important to understand the community, to understand where Calvert County is, where Charles County is, where St. Mary's County is. And some of these issues have been there forever. We don't need to study the light rail anymore. It's been studied to death. We need to build it. We need, in the long term, in the short term and midterm, we need to have rapid bus service to get folks from Southern Maryland into where the jobs are. But then we need to get jobs here. And we need, and my father was the Undersecretary of Defense of the United States under President Clinton. We used to go to Lexington Park all the time. It's impossible to get there. It doesn't almost matter what time of the day it is because of the traffic down here into Southern Maryland. So we need to build the light rail from Branch Avenue to Waldorf, and we need to have a bus service as the Band-Aid to get there.
Thank you. Mr. Jane.
So I look at infrastructure, transportation issues in a really comprehensive way. And anyone can go to my website, janeforgovernor.com, to hold me accountable, look at those details that I put in. But yes, it's expanding and improving the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project. Yes, it's investing in infrastructure projects like the Red Line, like the Purple Line. It's also making sure we have designated bus lanes and HOV lanes. It's making sure when we're talking about housing, we have smart growth and mixed use development that are not only closer to areas of transit where it's accessible, but that's not just focused on single-family housing, but multifamily housing, because again, it can help reduce congestion. Making sure that we really do not forget about all these different aspects and engaging members of the community into that conversation so that they're not forgotten about when we're executing those projects or executing these large infrastructure projects that often get left behind.
Mr. King.
You know, when I think about this question, I think about visiting the Charles County Fair with Senator Ellis, who's been a phenomenal leader on the Southern Maryland Light Rail Project, and hearing from person after person their frustration with traffic and the impact it has on their quality of life, how much time they get to spend with their families. So we need action on the Southern Maryland Light Rail Project. We certainly need to expand bus transportation. It's important for quality of life reasons, and important for climate reasons. We also should see this as an economic development opportunity. Every stop along the Southern Maryland Light Rail Project could be a place where we have mixed-use development, housing, retail. Employers can locate there. We ought to do more, though, to grow our town centers throughout Southern Maryland as places where folks can get to retail, where folks can start businesses. We should have incentives for incubation zones in our town centers, as well as grants for the arts, so that the town centers become a place where folks want to spend time and close to which folks want to live.
Thank you, Mr. King. The next question is for Mr. Perez. And this is also a local question. What are your plans to assist local governments like Charles County with its economies through grants, incentives, STEM jobs, healthcare, public safety, all of the above? Where would you begin?
Well, I would begin with looking at the data. There's so much small business development going on in Southern Maryland and elsewhere. And we need to support that. And the governor can play a catalytic role in that. I mentioned before the Community Bank of Chesapeake, which is the #2 small business lender in this area, helping them so that they can give more loans out to small business owners. Because we just talked about transportation. 60% roughly of folks go elsewhere to work. Well, you know what? One way to solve this problem is to create more jobs here at home, so that people can work here and live here. And investing in these banks, investing in a number of programs that exist at a state level but haven't been fully funded that will have that catalytic force, I think can be really, really successful moving forward. And so I would be focused very, very heavily on that small business development, and then focused on the defense industry, because we have so much opportunity there to build business.
Mr. Baker.
Thank you. I would do something, and I know the difference between working with a governor that's actually been a mayor or county executive and working with one that wasn't. The reason I bring that up is Governor O'Malley had been mayor of Baltimore, so he understood that he needed to work with us in Prince George's County and the council to actually put economic development incentive funds, combine it with ours, so we could do development around Branch Avenue, so we could actually do development around New Carrollton. So what I would do is do a lot of that with the commissioners down here, with the president, that we actually using a tool that we already have in the state, in the Secretary's office, Secretary of Commerce, expand the number of the amount from $100 million to $200 million, combine that to what you're doing here in this region, the southern region, so we can actually create opportunities there. That's the incentive we need to attract businesses. That's the incentive we need to actually lift up, small and minority businesses so they can be a part of it.
Thank you. Mr. Barron.
Thank you. The most important thing we can do for businesses in Charles County and around the state is to provide a highly skilled, well-educated, well-trained workforce. Studies show that is by far the most important factor in business and economic success in any jurisdiction, not just Charles County, not just Maryland, but across the United States. People matter. The quality of the workforce matters. It really matters to the success of any jurisdiction. That's why I am so focused on a public-private partnership with businesses statewide to provide effective job training to every young adult in Maryland who wants to advance, where we split the cost. This is different than the many job training programs that are out there, including the largest Department of Labor program in the United States, is not effective. Studies show that it does not actually increase wages, but partnering with businesses in this way, business-focused job training is
Thank you, Mr.
raises
Barron.
wages.
Mr. Gansler.
People choose to live in a place because they feel safe. There's a job that's available to them. They have access to public health, and their education system is great for their children. We need to make sure, as governor, that we elect somebody who has the vision, the experience, and the record of getting things done. I would submit there's wonderful people here, but I'm that person. And so, as we look at Southern Maryland, we need to make sure we promote our defense industry down at Lexington Park. We need to make sure we keep our environment clean. We actually have to have an environmentalist as the governor, as I was when I was Attorney General. And we need to make sure that we have mass transit and people can get to their jobs either from other places to here or from here to Prince George's County. So the last thing I would say is we need to make sure that we really build a green economy. And you look at my website with Green Maryland, and you'll see that we need to invest in solar and green energy projects to make sure there's jobs in Southern Maryland and throughout the state.
Thank you, Mr. Jane.
It's all about increasing disposable income, making sure we're reducing the cost of living, and making sure that we're giving access to people to have good quality jobs. That's what my Maryland Now plan is all about. It is fully paid for. You can go to janeforgovernor.com to find out the details to those plans. But by eliminating the state income tax for 95% of Maryland workers, creating the nation's first guaranteed jobs program, making public transit completely free, and also imposing some specific anti-corruption measures, I think those are some tangible, practical ways that we can really build economic recovery for employers as well as employees.
Mr. King.
You know, a few weeks ago, I was talking with two business owners, two African-American women who just started a juice bar. And they were very excited about it, and I saw all the great equipment that they had in the juice bar. It was an exciting opportunity. I said to them, well, how'd you get the capital to get the equipment and to renovate the space? And their answer was credit cards, borrowing from family members, emptying their retirement. Access to capital is one of the most significant obstacles to growing economic opportunity in the state. If we had a state bank like North Dakota does, that state bank would hold the state assets and then work with community banks to make capital available for folks to start and grow their businesses. That would be a much better approach than the one we've taken. We also have the opportunity to create innovation zones, to leverage our assets, whether it's the defense industry or the opportunity to grow solar in the region or the opportunity to grow businesses connected to agriculture, from farm-to-table restaurants to breweries. We can help people leverage our assets here in Southern Maryland to grow our economy.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
I'm thankful for the fact that almost 24 elected officials and labor unions have endorsed my gubernatorial campaign. Whether it is delegates, city council people, county county executives have all come and said that they think that I'm the right person to be the next governor. And it's not because I'm a nice guy, even though I think I'm a pretty nice guy. It's because they've seen me get big things done. It's because they've actually seen a bold vision and the ability to work together with local leaders in order to get big things done. And that, in this case, is going to start with how we're looking at equity. When you look at the fact that the state of Maryland allocated over $227 million in grants that were supposed to go towards our small businesses, and you look at how it was allocated, Montgomery County got about 2,600 grants. Charles County, which actually has a higher percentage of qualifying grants, higher percentage of qualifying organizations and businesses, got 272. When asked how that money was allocated, the answer that we got from the comptroller's office was, it was distributed via word of mouth. That's not equity.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. So I have to tell you, we are way ahead of time. So because of that, we're going to ask one more question. Start with Mr. Baker here before we go to audience questions. And so this question is, again, dealing with economic development. From enslavement to Jim Crow to segregation and redlining, mass incarceration, African Americans have been the subjects of government-protected economic injustice. Do you support some form of reparations for descendants of enslaved African Americans?
No, I do. I think it's time and short that we recognize the problems that we've had in this country and in the state, and that this state should actually lead the way for the rest of the nation on how we do this right. Now, what form that takes, I think working with the legislature, working with our local communities, but certainly an investment. And look at one of the things that I would throw out, we're talking about legalizing marijuana, recreational use. Why can't we take some of those funds and actually invest them back in communities in Baltimore City, where we actually saw the war on drugs actually decimate these communities? So why can't we look at ways that we know that we can document that communities have been hurt? And so I would be in favor of doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Barron.
The problem of racial inequality and the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow is enormous. And we need to, racial and social equality is the problem that I've devoted my career to. Finding effective ways to reduce those gaps, which are enormous in education and economic opportunity and other areas. The single most important thing we can do to reduce those gaps is to have government programs that aren't just well-intentioned, don't just sound good, but have been tested and proven to make a big difference in people's lives, particularly Marylanders of color. So the job training programs that I've described focus on fast-growing industries. They serve 80 to 90% people of color. There's a program to advise low-income first-generation college students, again, over 90% students of color. It's to get into college and complete college.
Thank you. Mr. Gansler.
I've started the first civil rights unit in the state's history when I was Attorney General, and we've been fighting for justice through the Attorney General's office, but I've been doing it my whole life. I was the head of the NAACP Criminal Justice Committee in Montgomery County starting in 1989, before I had children. And when I was state's attorney, we took on criminal justice reform, recognizing that crime disproportionately affects communities of color and underserved communities. But every time a police officer shot his or her gun, we put in the grand jury. Every time we had community prosecution to build bridges between the community and law enforcement that they serve. I was the first governor's candidate to call for legalization of marijuana and expungement of records. We need to make sure we have MBE enforcement, not just have the program in place. If I don't win this primary, Baltimore's going to suffocate. There's over 300 murders a year there. I'm the only person on this table that's ever been in the criminal justice system that knows the difference between a conviction and indictment, and we need real criminal justice.
Thank you, Mr. James.
To answer your question shortly, yes, but we also have to look at all of these issues through a racial equity lens. And so if I can, I'll touch on my criminal justice platform, because I think that's one of the most prevalent cases of racial inequity that we're seeing time and time again. And I don't think it's radical to demand accountability when black and brown people are just being murdered. And so that's why, again, if you go to my website, janeforgovernor.com, I have a full comprehensive plan that I shared back in January that talks about ending the money bail system, talks about ending for-profit prison contracts in the future, talks about treating drug and opioid and opioid use as a disease and not as a crime, making sure we're investing in more mental health professionals, making sure that we're preparing those who are in prison for release outside of prison, removing SROs from our public schools, and making sure that, as I've stated back in January, that we would legalize marijuana and expunge records. And again, making sure that all these issues we talk about, we're looking at it in a comprehensive way and through a racial equity lens.
Thank you. Mr. King.
You know, this question is deeply personal for me. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, about 25 miles from where my great-grandfather was enslaved in Gaithersburg, Maryland. The property where my great-grandfather was enslaved still owned by the family that are direct line descendants of the family that enslaved my family, and the cabin he lived in as an enslaved person still standing on the property. That's 3 generations ago. So no question that we have challenges in every aspect of our society, from criminal justice to our economy to education, that are an extension of that history of slavery, of segregation, of redlining. So we need repair in every dimension of our public policy. I think one way we approach that is to say every bill that comes before the General Assembly, just like there's a fiscal impact statement, there needs to be a racial equity impact statement. And we have to think about racial equity when we're legalizing marijuana, when we are reforming policing, when we are investing in education, when we are creating procurement policies that affect businesses owned by women and people of color. We need repair in every dimension.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
The black experience in this state is one that has not only been brutal, it's been exhausting. And it's important to understand that the black experience that we've had throughout the state, that its implications still continue to harm and hurt communities of color and black communities throughout the state of Maryland. While I was a CEO of one of the largest nonprofits in this country, I led on an initiative called 90 to 0. And what 90 to 0 did was it addressed the racial wealth gap that exists within our society by being able to have a cross-sectoral approach, that it wasn't just about what government was going to do, but it was also about what should the private sector do? What should nonprofits do? What should our institutions of higher education, which oftentimes are built on slave labor and the labor of enslaved people? What's all of our collective responsibility to be able to put together our best indicators and then also make sure we have policies that correlate with our values? That's exactly the kind of leadership that I would bring to Annapolis, that it's not about what one sector is responsible for, but it's what all of us should be responsible for.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Civil rights is the unfinished business of America, and civil rights has been my life's work. I prosecuted an LAPD officer pre-Rodney King. When the foreclosure crisis was ravaging this state and this country, I was here in Maryland helping pass laws to protect homeowners. The second highest legislative district in the state of Maryland for foreclosures when we were doing this work was your district, Senator Ellis. And you saw that, you know that, and you were part of so many people who have led this effort. So what we need to do moving forward is understand that history and commit ourselves to removing that. And we have an unprecedented opportunity here right now. And the legislature did so much work on police reform and other things. What they didn't have was a dance partner in Annapolis. There's so much more we can do and must do. And this has been my life's work. And this, for me, is what it's all about, making sure that everybody has access to the American dream.
Thank you. So we have a question from the audience. Are there a set of values upon which you make decisions? If so, please share. We'll start with you, Mr. Barron.
So I am a lifelong Democrat because I believe strongly in the goals and values of our party, including advancing racial and social equality, opportunity for all, not just a privileged few, and an active government that's trying to do big things like break the cycle of poverty. In terms of how I approach these issues, I'm very different than the other candidates. These are all good people. They all share the same goals. The way that I'm different is that I recognize that to achieve those goals, it's not enough to roll out yet another unproven plan or program, because however well-intentioned, many programs just don't work. So if we're going to make progress, we have to zero in on solutions that have been tested in the real world and shown effective, like the ones I've described.
Thank you. Mr. Gansler.
For the 16 years that I held office, both 8 years as Montgomery County State's Attorney, 8 years as Attorney General of Maryland, one of those years President of all the Attorneys General of the United States, I had a meeting every year. And I said to the people who worked in my office, I had 800 people approximately at the Attorney General's office, for example, I always said, do the right thing, do it for the right reasons, be able to articulate those reasons, and you'll be all right. And that's how I want to govern. And after 23 years in government, like all of us, I was contemplating about what do I want to do with my life during COVID, and I decided, I remembered that my currency is helping people, and that's what I want to do as governor, help the people of Maryland, the people that actually need a governor.
Thank you, Mr. James.
Values really of inclusivity and accessibility. And this started back when I was 13 years old and diagnosed and treated for a type of cancer. I remember going through that process, not knowing if I'm going to live to see the next day or outside of those four walls of that hospital room. I saw kids sitting right next to me lose their battles, and I found people were making decisions for me as opposed to making them with me. And those are the values that have led me throughout my professional career, but have also led this kind of campaign that I'm building, where I'm not just talking at people, but I'm engaging residents of all age groups, all backgrounds, every single county, not after I'm elected, but from the day one of my operation to help make policy and strategy decisions that are inclusive, that are accessible, and that really empower people from all backgrounds.
Thank you, Mr. King.
What's driven my whole career in public service from the time I was a teacher to the decision to run for governor is the deep understanding that public institutions can be transformative in people's lives. My mom passed when I was 8. My dad passed away when I was 12. In the period in between, my dad was struggling with Alzheimer's, and home was incredibly difficult and scary and unstable. The thing that saved me, the reason I'm alive today, the reason I'm sitting here, was public schools and public school teachers. Government can be a powerful force for good in people's lives. And as we think about what a next governor needs to do, they have to wake up every day thinking about how can we make sure that government is helping make people's lives better.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
I first joined the Army when I was 17 years old. I wasn't even old enough to join the Army by myself. I needed my mom's signature. But after my teenage years, she was more than happy to sign whatever paperwork she needed to sign. But we learned something in our first days in the military that really have been a guiding principle, not just in the military, but for me, frankly, has been a guiding principle in my entire career in public service. And that principle is this: we don't leave people behind. Ever. If you get one of my people, I will send a battalion in to go get them if I have to. And the guiding principle that I have in my philosophy, my governing philosophy, is we do not leave people behind because we don't have to.
Thank you. Mr. Perez.
I used to work at the Department of Health and Human Services, and there was a bust of Hubert Humphrey, and something that he said that always was my moral compass. The moral test of our strength as a nation is how we treat those in the dawn of life, our children, how we treat those in the twilight of life, the elderly, and how we treat those in the shadows of life. That's been my life's work. And what's always guided me is making sure that people in the shadows can have opportunity. Because I truly believe that if you give people that opportunity, they will seize it. And that has been what has informed everything I've done. And I've always understood as well that idealism and pragmatism are not mutually exclusive. And that's why I'm a proud member of the GSD wing of the Democratic Party. Getting stuff done. That's what it's about.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
I was going to use another S word, but...
I got involved in public service because of a conversation I had with my dad when I was 17 years old. My dad, like Mr. Moore, is 82nd Airborne.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. And I was complaining about the local politician and the fact that he had been there for 20 years and nothing was getting done. And my dad said to me, if you think you can do better, you should run. And as any 17-year-old knows, I know more than my father. I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run for office and show you don't have to give up your principles to get things done. And so every day since I was 17 to now 63 that I've been involved in public office, I have made decisions in the best interest. People may not have liked them, but they are in the best interest of the citizens that I represent and not myself.
Thank you. I think that we are at a good point for closing statements. So closing statements are going to be 1 minute per candidate. No, 2 minutes per candidate. What did we say? 1 minute or 2 minutes? We said 1 minute. Okay, thank you. It's going to be... We're so ahead of time. Okay, it's going to be 1 minute per candidate. Mr. Gansler, we'll begin with you.
Thank you. As I go around the state, I hear from people they want two things. They want a Democratic nominee who has a vision, who has experience, who has a record of accomplishment, because how are you going to know they're going to actually be able to get all the things we've talked about tonight done? Well, because I've done it before. And the second thing they want is they want a candidate that can actually beat the Republicans. Today, Donald Trump endorsed one of the Republican nominees. I don't think he will win. I think we'll be going against a moderate Republican nominee. And so we need to make sure that we have somebody who's led in crisis. I've led in crisis. We are in a crisis. I led during the national mortgage foreclosure crisis, fought the big banks, and I'll do so again as we rebuild our economy after COVID-19. I was the environmental attorney general. We cleaned up the Bay. We went after corporate polluters. We need to fight climate change here in Maryland. We had a crisis that gay people were not allowed to marry who they loved. I fought that. I led that. The Republicans tried to impeach me. We now have a new crisis about women's reproductive rights here in Maryland. We need to elect a Democratic governor.
Thank you, Mr. Jain.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Once again, my name is Ashwani Jain, and I'm running for governor to make our politics more inclusive and accessible. And while I would be the nation's youngest governor and first millennial governor, I have both the experience and the perspective needed to really be a partner and serve you all well. I've worked in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. I helped manage the political appointee process in the Obama White House and administration. I helped get over 400,000 Marylanders access to affordable health care when I was at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I worked on affordable housing issues when I was at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I helped get the NIH and the FDA billions in additional funding when I was then Vice President Biden's Director of Outreach for the Cancer Moonshot. And equally important, as a product of Maryland Public Schools, as a son of immigrants and minority-owned small business owners, and as a cancer survivor, I know what it feels like to be written off, discounted, or have others make decisions for me instead of with me. That's why we built one of the largest grassroots campaign in this state with over 400 active volunteers. JaneForGovernor.com for more information.
Thank you, Mr. King.
The stakes of a governor's race are incredibly high. Government can be a force for good in people's lives, or it can leave people out and cause people to miss out on opportunity. I will be a governor who will be committed to progressive values and to actually getting them done. I have experience at the state level, at the federal level, getting things done in government. But one of the keys for me is I'm campaigning on the stuff I actually want to get done. I hope folks will go to johnkingforgovernor.com and see the specifics on what we want to do on climate, see the specifics on what we want to do on education, see the specifics of what we want to do on economic development, see my commitment that paid family leave would not only be something I fight for, but the first bill I want to sign. We need a governor who's willing to campaign in every part of the state, as I have, on specific actions they will take to make people's lives better.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
I've had the joy of spending the entire day down here in Southern Maryland. And I spent time with a nurse who was talking about out here in Charles County, we have one hospital for 300,000 residents. How we have one 24-hour pharmacy. Speaking with a group of educators who were talking about the fact that we have this massive attrition of educators, and we are not dealing with the trauma and the mental health challenges that for both our students and also for our educators and paraeducators in this moment. And the thing that I noticed about everything that they said to me today was there was nothing that they were saying to me today that was new. These are challenges we've been dealing with for a very long time. These are generational challenges. And the way we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create generational change to these generational challenges. As I learned in airborne school, if you want different, do different. And when people say that they want to change things that they have had a responsibility in helping to build, if you want different, do different.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
This is indeed a moment of grave crisis, and this is a moment of remarkable opportunity. Look what the Maryland General Assembly, the Senate, and the House did last year. A moment of remarkable opportunity. The next governor needs to be the multitasker in chief, because that person has to tackle the pandemic, education reform, climate change, healthcare reform, all of these issues. I've done this my entire life. I've been GSDing my entire life, making sure that people in the shadows can get opportunity, making sure that we hold predatory lenders accountable, making sure we make government run well at a local level, at a state level, at a federal level. The next governor needs to make sure that every single person has opportunity in this state. That has been my life's work. Sustained executive leadership is what we will need, and sustained executive leadership is what I will provide as your
Thank
next
you, Mr.
governor.
Perez. Mr. Baker.
I'm proud to be running with Nancy Navarro, the councilwoman from Montgomery County. And I'm proud that we're running on our values, whether it's we're the only campaign that's using public financing for our campaign. We're pushing for Medicare for all, because as we found out, as I found out as county executive, building a regional, not a hospital in Prince George's County, but a regional medical center for the southern part of Maryland, that we have to do better. And so it is not just about what you say or even about what you believe. It's what you can get done. I'm proud of the fact that we were able to not only reduce crime by 50% in Prince George's County, but at the same time reduce arrests, that we increased the number of people who went from uninsured and underinsured and got them insurance. So I'm proud of the record we have, but it's about getting it done. This is a serious time in our state and in our nation, and Maryland should lead the way. We should be the leaders of the nation. That's what I would do as governor.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Barron, you get the last word.
I'm a former nonprofit executive. Before that, I was a Clinton administration official. I headed a roughly $1 billion technology program, won awards for reinventing government. I've been an appointee of Democratic and Republican presidents and twice confirmed by the Senate. I've gotten major legislation enacted into federal law that's benefited Maryland and many other states. I want to pioneer a new governing approach in our state, one where we're not just rolling out the next new plan and hoping it's going to work. We have done that. We've been doing that for decades. 20 years from now, our children are going to look back and say we faced all these long-standing problems, stagnant wages and the rest, and we just kept doing the same thing again and again? Or will our children say that Maryland led the nation? We pioneered a new governing approach based on evidence about what actually works, and that we finally moved the needle on education and stagnant wages and health care and racial equity and other problems. That is the future I want for Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Okay, so everybody's been waiting for the opportunity. Please give these folks a round of applause. And thank you to all of our audience members for following the rules. Thank you. Because of your efforts, we were able to get more questions in and really get an opportunity to learn more about these candidates. I wish I could have done some follow-up questions, but I followed rules as well. So I did not. But I do want to take this opportunity to say again, I'm Tracy Wilkins, Prince George's County Bureau Chief with NBC4 in Washington. Please be sure to watch NBC4 at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., at midday at 11 a.m., and 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and 11 p.m. We have more news than any other station in Washington, and it is always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me. And now we'll have Yvette Lewis.
And forum is only as good as the moderator. Was she amazing or what? Thank you. I mean, she kept us all so focused, and it was great. Thank you. We are very, very grateful to you. And I can say unequivocally to all of you, after hearing our wonderful candidates tonight, we will have a Democratic governor in Maryland next year. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So I want to thank all of our candidates and our moderator for participating tonight. We hope everyone learned more about this great group of candidates. Thank you to Red Tail's Ocean Grill for hosting us, to our sponsors, GS Proctor, Washington Gas, Velocity. We thank you so very much for all of your support. Thank you to our viewers joining us tonight on Facebook. Thank you to all of you that are here live, whether in person, online, or wherever you happen to be. If you see this at a later time, because this will stay up, please watch, enjoy, watch it a second, watch it a third time. Get to know our candidates. Get to know the people that want to serve as your next governor. And our next Burger and Brews Forum will be in Frederick. It will be in Frederick, and it will be on January the 5th. Please follow us on social media for more information. Have a great night, everyone, and thank you all for being here. This was wonderful. Thank you.